local history, local culture, local events, your community. This is the Joe Kelly Show.
Hi there, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. Two guests today, Rebecca McLain and Patrick Reynolds, both of the Oneida County History Center. We're going to be talking about the upcoming telethon, which will air right here, and also an upcoming exhibit on shoes, Utica's Shoe District. Short break, and we're right back with Rebecca. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. We're joined by the aforementioned Rebecca McLain, Executive Director of the Oneida County History Center, and it's always good to see you.
Yes, good morning, Joe.
Busy time of the year. As I said earlier, the telethon's right around the corner. I'll let you give us the who, what, where. It's going to be right here on WUTR.
Absolutely. So just a couple days away on Wednesday, May 18th. And we will actually be broadcasting on WUTR, but live from the History Center, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. We turn our exhibit gallery into a stage with tons of cameras and our phone bank. And also exciting, it'll be the second year, but we'll be streaming on cnyhomepage.com for those of us who don't necessarily have cable TV anymore.
Or for those people who are living in different parts of the country.
Oh, of course, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's always a good thing. I know I had somebody tell me last year that they moved away years ago, but they enjoy seeing that telethon and seeing familiar faces. And speaking of familiar faces, there's going to be a lot of familiar faces that are going to be joining us for the show. Yes,
we have a huge guest list for our little 3-hour show. So the county executive, Anthony Picente, is going to pop in. Sheriff Maciol, new Monk Rowe is going to give us a little saxophone tune, which should be kind of fun. He's one of our living legends, plus a number of other community guests.
Frank Tomeno always joins us, and Frank, when he joins us, we're sure to get a little bit of history.
Absolutely. I think Frank will be making several appearances. Maybe we can try to stump him with some trivia questions.
Pretty hard thing to do, I think, but yeah.
You never know. Yeah, and then our Volunteer of the Year, Lou Parada, is going to make an appearance. Some of our other volunteers, we have a good list.
Lou Parada is the City of Utica historian, so he has things to offer as well.
Lou wears many hats.
Yeah. Some of the volunteers at the History Center will also join us, yes?
Correct. Yeah, so there'll be a ton of people behind the scenes as well, and I think we have 15 people answering phones this year across 4 different shifts, so we'll try to speak with all of them if possible, just because they are many of them are community partners.
Yeah. Is there a goal this year, Rebecca?
Yes, we are trying to raise $35,000. So last year we did 37, which was our best year ever. So we'd like to get close to that to support a number of things. Of course, our collections are always in need of constant care. So that's just management by our staff, new boxes and materials to keep them safe. Summer interns, that's what we're going to have several this summer. We'll be having one student from Colgate University who's going to help turn our Hall of Fame exhibit. They're going to add a virtual component to that, so those who, again, are out of the area or even educators can access that resource. We have a couple of returning high school volunteers who are just looking to get some experience, and then another local student who attends Siena College. So it'll be a busy summer.
And you may have set the goal at $35,000, but I'm going to set it at $37,001, which would be a wonderful thing to do, $1 more than the highest ever. And it'll be you, me, and Kelly Blazowski that are going to be co-hosting it. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun and a good time for people to tune in. And it's a wonderful way, really, for somebody who wants to support history in Oneida County to do it. And there's a variety of ways they could do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess I want to mention, because I don't think we push this hard enough, certainly it's a fundraiser and we'd love for people to call in and donate, but it's also a membership drive. So it's a great time for people in the community or those who live elsewhere to renew their membership, maybe become a new member if they're not a member. It's always makes a great gift, right. Even upgrading your membership. So maybe you're a family, but you only have an individual membership. And that really does, it supports us all year long.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, it allows us to put on our programs, to host our events, to have interns, to do everything we do. It really helps.
And even somebody who lives out of town, out of state, they get the newsletter. Yep. If they become a member.
Yeah, so I mean there are a ton of perks of being a member. So you get free access to our research library. You do get a newsletter, which now comes out 6 times a year. You get a discount on our bookstore. So if you're not local as well, there's an e-book store. Yeah.
And really, it's the bookstore is the best bookstore for local history you could ever find. I mean, there's titles there you won't find anywhere else.
Oh, 100%. So our bookstore focuses entirely on local history and local authors. And so we do have a number of titles that can't really be found anywhere or elsewhere. And so we have new and used titles as well. So sometimes we end up being the repository for some used books that can be hard to find, and we want to get them new homes.
And tell people what time we go on the air again, Rebecca.
It's 5 o'clock, so you can join us from 5 to 8. In kind of the middle segment, we will be only streaming from about 6:30 to 7, but you can still keep up with us. And then I think we didn't mention yet, but there'll be a great incentive for those who call first. Our first 40 callers can receive, we have a travel mug or a coffee mug and a bag of Utica coffee for those who pledge $50 or more. So that could be simply a donation, or it could be a membership, an individual membership, which is $40, and a $10 donation, and that is sponsored by Oneida County Tourism.
And we take that 6:30 to 7 break where we just stream because of the national news, right?
Correct, yeah. And then also the telethon will still, of course, be going that whole time. So we encourage people to keep calling. We want to keep our phone volunteers busy. We don't want them wanting.
The History Center will also, during the evening, I think, show some artifacts, yes?
Yes. So we plan to bring out a number of artifacts that aren't currently on display from our collection storage and archives, just to share some of those hidden gems. I know you like to bring those types of things on your show as well, which our next guest, Patrick, will have, but some items are a bit bigger or fragile and can't really travel. So we'll show some of those on the air. And there's, just to get away from the telethon for a second, it's going to be a busy summer. Yes.
For the History Center. You got a lot of programs coming up?
We do. So right after the telethon, we're partnering with the Tug Hill Commission to do a little bit bigger event about the history of the Civilian Conservation Corps, or the CCC, in the area. So there'll be a few different speakers and a panel discussion on the subject. So that's
right at 1608 Genesee Street?
1608 Genesee, and that one will be in person and virtual. So for those who aren't comfortable coming out or who may live in a different area. And then coming up in June, we're going to start going, or actually that same Saturday and through June, July, and August, we're going to start going to the Oneida County Public Market 2 or 3 Saturdays a month again as well. So we'll have our books, information, and then we're going to do some micro tours. So we're going to give a few little tours of Union Station on some of those days, and then we're putting together we're calling it the Shoe District Tour, which Patrick will probably tell you more about coming up.
And for those who aren't familiar with where the public market is, it's next door to Union Station in the old REA wing.
Correct, yep. So our booth is inside the REA wing, which we're lucky. We get the shade, and then there's lots of other vendors outside in the sun.
You're doing something, are you not, Rebecca, with digitizing things at the History Center?
We're doing a ton of, well, we have been for years digitizing some documents, but we are going to be partaking in a project called Consider the Source, which is a partnership between the New York State Archives and the Central New York Library Resource Council and a few others, but it's a way to connect repositories like us, so museums and archives, with educators. So we're going to be specifically digitizing pieces of our collection that relate to New York State curriculum, and they're going to be uploaded to a platform that's available to anyone, but geared towards teachers, so they can build local history into their lesson plans and just New York State history into their lesson plans and use the resources that we have.
You know, if one thing good has come out of COVID, it's that a lot of institutions have realized the value of digitizing things to make them available online, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was something I think a lot of places were working towards, but we've gotten much better, much more efficient, and the end product is coming out more usable and organized, I would say.
The 1608 Genesee Street, home of the Oneida County History Center, is that on the National Register? I should know this. Is it on
It is not on the National Register, but we actually are embarking on a project to get it on the National Register. So we're speaking with a few consultants, doing preliminary research, working with SHPO to gather all the pieces to put that together. And our goal is to hopefully apply and at least be accepted for the state register within the next year. And then the national part takes a little bit longer, but it has to go in front of a state review board and lots of steps. But
I was going to say it's a long and complicated process, yes?
It is, yes. So our facilities committee, who has a wide skill set, so we have an architect on there, those knowledgeable about our building, myself, those knowledgeable about research. We're trying to put together the pieces.
Okay. The time, the date, the place for this is what year?
The 17th.
17th. I should have known that too.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. So it's our 17th annual telethon presented by the Bank of Utica, and it'll be broadcast on Wednesday, May 18th from 5 to 8 p.m. So people can join us for a few minutes. They can join us for the whole time. That would be fantastic. And of course, right here on WUTR and CNYhomepage.com.
Good. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to being with you. When we come back, we'll be joined by Patrick Reynolds, and he's going to be talking about an upcoming exhibit at the Oneida County History Center. Short break, right back. And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. We're joined by the aforementioned Patrick Reynolds. Patrick is at the Oneida County History Center. You wear a lot of hats up there, Patrick, but the official title is what?
My official title is the Director of Public Programs, which involves not only our monthly lecture series and scheduling the speakers, but also the exhibition program as well.
And you brought some stuff that is going to be when does this exhibit on shoes start?
Well, we're hoping to have it up later this summer. I haven't figured out a final date yet because I'm still learning things, as is fun thing at the History Center. You know, with the economic prosperity brought by the railroad and the canal, there are a lot of support industries that grew up, and I didn't know this, but making shoes was one of them. When you think about industry in Utica, your mind first goes to the textile industries.
Right.
But after the Civil War, 1870s and 1880s, they were making over 1,500 to 2,000 pairs of shoes a day in Utica.
Where did the only thing I've connected with shoes in Utica is the Hurd, H-U-R-D, Hurd Shoe Company down on
Be Main Street.
Main Street, and I'm trying to think of what was second, right in there. The big building is still there.
Right. So as it turns out, the shoe industry, we're calling it the shoe district in Utica, and they were right down in the area you're talking about. John and Broad Street was the site of the Reynolds factory, the Reynolds brothers, which was a 5-story tall building. The leather came in the top and shoes came out the bottom. And there were actually 2 factories down there. The Holbrook one, which these are made by Holbrook as well. Employing
What year are we talking about for those?
So they started in the 1860s and 70s. They specialized in the high point, women's and children's shoes specifically. And it ran until the 1890s, and they ran into labor troubles is essentially. And the owners closed up shop and ended up moving down south like others. But you know, from our permanent collection, beautiful little kids' shoes. Shoes are a thing that really doesn't survive a lot because they get beat up and used. In this case, a little toddler, he's probably 2 or 3 years old with a nice shoe like that, and they never really got worn a lot. And in the case of maybe some finer shoes, you only wore it if you were going to go out dancing or something like that.
Yeah.
But getting back to your question about where it was, early on it was on Genesee Street where a lot of just small shoemakers were, with just one shop making, you know, simple work boots and things like that. But by the time of the High Point, they positioned themselves very strategically right outside the train station. So you'd come off, and not the current train station, right? The older ones, like pre-1919. So just imagine, you know, visitors to Utica, maybe they're visiting Trenton Falls on an excursion and things like that. But they could stop, and there would be a whole floor showroom of the latest styles that they were making. So it's quite a huge story. And part of it, I think, is connected. You know, we hear about the leather industry in Gloversville, down in the Mohawk Valley. Well, in order to make gloves or shoes, you need leather. And one thing we made here was cheese. So the combination of the two, you got your cows making cheese, but a side industry was actually the leather industry and making shoes here in Utica.
And it's never really gotten, I mean, I think I know a little bit about local history, but I've never focused on the shoe industry. It's kind of gotten...
It has gotten swept away because it disappeared quite quickly. Like I said, with the labor problems, they closed up shop. But they actually had beautiful, and I don't know how well they'll show up on camera, but beautiful trade cards featuring their names. That these are actually almost like collectible baseball cards that the shoppers would take with them, and it shows, you know, who made the shoes, and then it lists local markets. This one was being sold in Watertown, New York, so these would either go in the box of shoes or just to get the name out.
How did the idea for a shoe exhibit come about, Patrick?
So I personally have an interest in the history of technology and manufacturing, and as I started to sort of discover more about it and look at the maps and look at what happened, it was a significant part of our manufacturing industry. Migrants, workers, you know, Polish and Italians were working in there. Many women were working in the factories, just like in the textile industries. So it's although the buildings are gone for the most part, as you mentioned, the Hurd building, which still stands, the history is still important. And we have a few specimens of shoes in our collection, which we're glad they're actually marked that they're made in Utica, which some of these factories were actually wholesalers. So they would make a shoe and someone would sell it in another name. So it's just a story that is worth repeating.
Yeah, yeah. The big one that you were talking, was that, what was the name of the big one, the company?
Reynolds Brothers.
Reynolds Brothers.
No relation.
No relation,
No
okay.
relation, no.
The, in the Reynolds Brothers building, I mean, that's a huge building.
Yeah, 5 stories, and it's basically, if you know where Baggs Brewing is today, it's right adjacent to that on John Street. Yep. One of the others, a couple of the shoe factories had a bad demise in that the buildings burned. I mean, these were wood-framed buildings. It's kind of before the great changed from the Chicago fire where they manufactured them. But the Reynolds Brothers building actually had an elevator, steam-powered elevator, and there was steam-powered shafting and line shafting throughout the building. But unfortunately, like many of the old buildings, it got caught in a drastic fire.
Yeah. You mentioned that you were interested in technology and innovations and things like that.
Right.
And I was wondering why you brought a stapler with you for when we're talking mainly about shoes.
Sure. Well, you know, we get lots of visitors to the museum. Sometimes they're doing genealogy, and a woman brought in this story about the stapler. And if you look on the top, it's marked like many office staplers that you see, Bostitch. That's the name of the manufacturer that appears on
I've got one
virtually
at home with this.
every desktop. And it turns out that a man named Stanley Kuffel owns the patent on the basic stapler that we know today.
Stanley Kuffel.
Kuffel. He was born in 1918. He passed away in 2012. But we actually I found the patent from 1958 that he registered it with and had it manufactured, and it still is today. You see it under the Bostitch name.
Yeah.
I think it's changed hands a few times. Stanley was making them for a while with that name on
And
it.
the local connection, if any, is what?
His Kuffel he grew up here.
Okay.
Yeah, Stanley Kuffel.
And did he make money on this? I hope.
Well, I don't know if it was, so in the manufacturing, if it's work for hire, so he designed this while he was being paid, so he didn't necessarily get the profit off of it. But the patent's actually in his name rather than the company. So depending on how he negotiated the manufacturing, he could have. So
Yeah.
just again, one of those everyday things
Yeah.
made in Utica.
Yeah. The woman that brought this in, how did she know, or brought the information in, how did she know about it?
I believe it was a relative in her family, and she was working on genealogy. As you know, we have extensive resources of files. You know, there's a rack of 9 or 10 files down there, and she was digging away to try and find her family tree.
You're there almost every day, Patrick. My guess is that genealogy is, if it isn't the top, it's right near the top reason for people coming into 1608 Genesee Street.
It certainly is. You know, the phone rings, and people want to set up an appointment, and they start telling you their family story, and we're there to help. Probably the second one would be architecture, or I own an old home and I want to know what was in there or what was there before and things like that.
You know, one of the great resources I've found in my researching over the years is the city directory, and all kinds of good stuff in there, and there's a complete set at Oneida County History Center.
I believe it goes back to about 1817. For your viewers who may not know, the city directory, it's kind of like the telephone book of its day. But this was before telephones, but it lists by last name, their residence. It often gives what they did for an occupation. I was looking in the 1880s in Utica. If you search on the city directories, which we can, I came up with 300 shoemakers.
300?
Working at these factories. And that's just one. There were leather cutters was another job that was working at the factories. But the city directories, like I said, they give the residents, they give usually their occupation, things like that.
And when did you say you're hoping to get this open to the public?
We hope by this fall to have it up and ready. We're also planning on doing a walking tour. We're going to be at the farmers market over the summer. We're going to do a walking tour of the shoe district, as we call it. And also we're using technology. There'll be a walking tour. It'll be in your phone that you can do because our self-serve.
Yeah, that whole area down there is such a historic area. Joe Bottini, the official Oneida County historian, has done a lot of work trying to get the signage correct, and it's really where Utica was born.
Yep. Joe was instrumental in getting the Fort Schuyler marker moved to its proper position.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think people are going to be surprised? I think you were surprised at the extent of all this.
I was surprised, and we're going to do some enlargements of some of the beautiful graphics that go with this. Make something that people can be proud of.
Yeah, the look ahead for you, Patrick, with your programming. How far out are you doing stuff? It's probably always on your mind.
Yes, so we take a break in some degree from the public lectures due to the lack of air conditioning in our auditorium. So I am sort of in a gathering phase and taking a little break for the summer. But we're doing other things. We're going to have a bike ride along the canal again and the walking tour. So rather than people coming to us, we can get to them.
Nice idea.
Yeah.
And don't forget, one of these days, put a tent out front and sit outside under the tent.
We will do that. We did it for the launch of our scavenger hunt, which is in August, which
Yeah.
is always a big hit.
Good. Thanks for coming in, and I'll see you on what date?
May 18th, 5 to 8 p.m. for our annual telethon.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you, Joe.
That's going to do it for us this week. We'll be back next week. We'll do it all again. Don't forget cnyhomepage.com. A lot of good stuff there. And I'll see you on the 18th as well. Take care, everybody.